Hello, lovely. It's me, Maple, and welcome back to the fourth part of my Mindfulness 101 series. We're going to be getting a little bit deeper today because today we're going to be talking about insight. So, I'd like you to think back to when you were a kid, when everything around you was fresh and new and exciting. How a cardboard box could become a rocket ship, or a piece of plastic could have an entire life story. I think that in a lot of ways, this natural curiosity that we have is stifled by the time we become adults. When we go through school, grades are the most important thing. It doesn't matter if we're actually excited about what we're learning. We're told to do things just because. And so we grow up and we end up living a lot of life on autopilot because we were taught not to be curious. We were taught to do things just because that's the way they're supposed to be. So, today we are going to try to bring a sense of curiosity back into our lives, to have a sense of childlike awe at a mundane moment, and to open ourselves back up to the possibilities of the world. A main thing that stops us from being curious or having true insight is that the human mind is a prediction machine. Now, this is very natural. The world is so complex and there's so much information that we're trying to process every single day that the only way we can survive is by making these assumptions and snap judgments. We have to give everything a label, including ourselves. But I want to be clear that the problem doesn't come from making these assumptions. It's a perfectly healthy and natural thing for our minds to do. The problem comes from treating these judgments as if they were the 100% complete truth, when in reality no snap judgment could possibly capture the complexity of the world around us. But we have a habit of sticking to these assumptions. And so we end up thinking, feeling, and even taking action based off of an inaccurate view of the world. At its best, assumptions are a gross oversimplification. And at their worst, they could be completely wrong. I'll give you a real world example with myself. I always describe myself, and still do, as a shy person. I have given this label to myself over the years. Some of you might be surprised by that since of what I do. I will say that it's a lot easier for me to speak when there's just a camera and I know I can edit it If anyone's ever been to a live stream of mine, usually the 5 minutes at the beginning, I'm very nervous. But so I've gone through life with this label of myself. Even though I'm an extroverted person, I've always had difficulty in social situations with new people in particular. And there have been times where I've been at a party or a work event, and there's been a group of people who I don't really know or haven't met yet. And in my head, I know the best thing to do would just be to go over and introduce myself to some new people. Maybe make some new friends. Maybe if it's a work event, I could do some networking. But I would sit there and tell myself, nope, that's something you can't do because you're shy. And so I give myself this label. I put myself into this tiny box and tell myself that I can't do something because I'm shy. When in reality, I could just stand up, walk over there, and start talking. What's the worst that's going to happen? If we think of ourselves and label ourselves a certain way, then we continue to act that way. And so it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you can take a step back and take a moment to think, no, I have the ability to go and talk to these people. I've talked to people before. It's not a new concept. Then you might actually find that you're able to do a lot more than you limit yourself to do. So, where does mindfulness come in? With mindfulness, it allows us to take that step back. It allows us to observe these assumptions and judgments as they naturally come up. And so we can actually take a moment to think, is this how the world actually is? Or is that just how I assume it is because of my own history and prejudices? It allows us to break down the walls of these little boxes that we've made for everything. And it allows us to become more comfortable with the uncertainty that comes along with that. And it allows us to view the world as a much more complex, rich, and nuanced place, to give us that childlike awe and wonder again. And so I think it's incredibly important to at least try to be insightful. We will never learn everything about anything, but I think it's worth it to at least try to bring curiosity back into our lives. And then in turn, that can bring more creativity and openness and joy into our lives. So, with all that being said, let's start our meditation for today. As always, take your time making sure that you are completely comfortable in whatever way that feels best for you. This could be sitting, even standing, laying down. The focus is to be relaxed and yet still alert of the world around you. You can either have your eyes opened or closed, whatever feels the most natural to you in any moment of this session. When you're comfortable, we can start having a few deep breaths in, out. Bringing awareness to the sensation of breathing. Feeling your lungs expand and contract. Inviting a sense of stillness and calm into your mind. I'd like you to choose your intention for this session. As always, it can be something simple, like you'd like to be more insightful in general. Maybe something more specific, like you'd like to be more insightful about yourself. Whatever your intention is, we're going to take a few moments here to analyze the motivation behind your intention. I'd like you to spend some time just thinking about what led you to this practice today. And now bring attention and awareness to what's going on in your mind. Is there one stream of consciousness, multiple thoughts? Are there images? Maybe there's gaps in between the thoughts. We're not yet analyzing anything. Right now we're simply just observing our thoughts and how they naturally like to be. Right now we're just following our thoughts naturally. If they go off in any direction, that's fine. Just follow where your mind naturally wants to go. Noticing which thoughts stick with you stronger and which thoughts are more fleeting. If you lose a thought before you can think it through fully, that's okay. But don't go hunting it down. Just appreciate this moment of calm in a gap between the thoughts. noticing any patterns in the thoughts as you just naturally let them drift in and out. Any patterns in the language, or maybe any patterns in the words being used. Good, good, good. And now we're going to take a few moments looking at our emotions. How do you feel right now? What emotions are naturally coming up? How do you feel in general? Are you tired, bored, stressed, maybe full of energy, a sense of joy, or a sense of peace? If you do notice yourself trying to avoid certain thoughts or emotions, that's okay. That's perfectly natural. But avoiding emotions or thoughts is one of the biggest barriers to being able to engage our thoughts and emotions in a healthy way. A big key piece of mindfulness is that resistance brings suffering. You might be questioning this because last week we talked about not obsessing over negativity. But we're not trying to obsess here. And we're also not trying to ignore the negative emotions. It's about a balance of accepting that this negative thought or emotion is there, but then accepting it and moving on to the next. Good, good, good. Perfect. Now we've spent some time just being aware of our thoughts in general. But let's try to focus our thoughts on one situation. So first, I'd just like you to think of a situation in your life right now. Maybe it's a moment that's already happened, or maybe it's just something that's been weighing on you recently. Think of this moment and see what comes to your mind naturally. think about what emotions you have attached to this situation. Think about how this situation makes you feel. Good, good. Again, you're just following your natural train of thought. If you get too far away from this situation, that's fine. Just take a deep breath and come back. Perfect. Next, we're going to try to strip away those emotions and try to think of this situation without judgment, just factually how it is. Think about if you have any assumptions or judgments about the situation, any assumptions about other people who may be involved. Maybe you have assumptions that make this situation seem harder than it actually is. Maybe you have assumptions about someone else's motives. We're not trying yet to analyze if these assumptions are correct or not. We're simply just trying to bring awareness to them. Bringing awareness to the fact that these assumptions might be limiting our scope of view. Good, good, perfect. And finally, we're going to imagine this situation, but from a different perspective. This could either be someone else who is involved in the situation, or maybe an impartial, imaginary person. Just think of how they would view this situation. Do you think this other person has their own assumptions about the situation? Do they have assumptions about you or your intentions? Take a moment to really think about if you've had any assumptions here that have limited you. And again, the focus here is not to necessarily change your perspective, but simply just to have a different perspective, if only for a little bit. For our last main exercise of this session, I'd like to do some open awareness, just like from our last session. Again, open awareness is just about being, not trying to do anything. Like being on the side of a stream and enjoying all the sounds, all the feelings, all the sensations, without focusing on any one of them. So take a few moments here just to bring yourself into open awareness. Good, good, good. And now I'd like to shift, still somewhat in a state of open awareness, but somewhat focusing on our thoughts. But just like open awareness, we're not focusing on any one thought, just letting them naturally flow through like clouds drifting along the sky. As you sit here in open awareness of your thoughts, I want to make it clear to you that no one of these thoughts defines who you are. They're simply pieces of you. But there are so many pieces of you. There's infinite potential for who you are. No thought could possibly define you. No label, no assumption, no judgment, even that you've made of yourself, could possibly define you. Imagine that multiverses existed, and in each of these infinite multiverses, there's a version of you who's slightly different because of different choices that you've made. But over time, these different versions of you get further and further apart with each decision. But all of these yous exist right now inside of you. There's potential for each one of these versions to exist. Insight isn't about trying to find the you who's existed all along, who's been there this whole time. We just had to dig it out. That doesn't exist. Insight is about understanding your history and how that made you who you are today. But insight is also understanding how vast you could be, how much space you can take up if you just break down the box of who you are in your own mind. All of these thoughts are pieces of you, but they don't define you. Nothing can possibly define you. Perfect. A big part of insight is just giving yourself space to see how much space you can take up, because it might surprise you. Before we close our session, I'd like you to take a few moments to think about what you got out of this session. It could be big or small. Maybe one sentence that stuck with you. Maybe one insightful thought that you had. Really think about what you've learned today. Good, good, good. Observing how you feel right now. Any emotions that have come up. Maybe thinking about how you feel differently than the beginning of the session. I'm going to leave you for just some moments of peace so you can give yourself space to occupy with whatever you'd like. So before I go, thank you so much for joining me for today's session. I really appreciate the effort of coming to these sessions. It can be difficult, but I appreciate that you've taken the step to be here, and you should be proud of yourself as well. Again, these are a huge passion project of mine. I really genuinely hope that I've helped you and hopefully other people as well. So if you do enjoy these sessions, please leave a like and a comment so that I could hopefully help reach more people. But I just appreciate you for being here. So thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye. enjoyed this video, you should definitely go like, comment, and subscribe. But thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you